This is Eric Michaels, and you have tuned in to eHealth Radio, brought to you by eDrugstore.md. Today, we are with certified business and life coach Suzanne Kimberlin. Suzanne, welcome to the show.
Welcome to everyone out there as well.
Well, thanks for joining us, and let's look at a couple of things here. Where do you begin in finding ways to reduce stress, which does affect our relationships?
When we're talking about stress within a relationship, what we need to do is actually define what stress is. Because what's stressful for one person, might not be stressful for another. And when we're looking at stress, we actually have to identify what the problem is specifically. It's not looking at the bigger picture. Quite often when we're looking at stress within a relationship, it's actually we're looking at ourselves. It isn't always the fact that the partner is the person causing the stress. It's quite often ourselves, and we can actually be angry with ourselves. We can actually be frustrated with ourselves, and the body language we're actually giving off is creating the stress within the relationship. I know that might sound mad, but quite often within a relationship, it can become quite dull, quite staid, and we take each other for granted. And what we've got to start doing is actually assuming that we are partly to blame, and also take ownership, which we often don't. When we're looking at stress, we're actually using a word that really doesn't have any definition within a relationship for everyone, because stress for one person is actually quite therapeutic for another. If you've got a relationship with two people who've got together after having other relationships, you actually can bring old baggage into the new relationship. Perhaps, for instance, you're a person who is fueled by not aggression, but just you love that ping pong, that sort of table tennis game of toing and froing within a relationship. And you've suddenly met a new partner who is a passive person, who is an observer. That can cause stress until you can identify who you are. And once you've actually recognized that you're playing this game and nobody knows the rules, then you can perhaps start dealing with what the stress within the relationship is. And quite often there is a pattern there. And you've got to remind yourself that the stress is in the body, not in the mind. Because what we talk about stress, everyone says, oh, I'm stressed. And immediately you see this person put the hand up to the head and it's like, oh, I'm stressed. So that's an immediate association with the head and the mind. And when you're actually, if you were to close your eyes and think what stress is, you'll actually feel it is a feeling. It is within your body, and it's actually nothing to do with your mind. So you're associating with a feeling. If you can identify what that feeling is, you can usually find out what the stress is. And quite often the stress can be things like unhappiness. It can be anger. It can actually be love. It can be several things, but identify what the feeling is. And if you find that the feeling is anger, what is causing the anger? Is the person that you're relating to making you angry, or are you angry at your own inability perhaps to do something or to move forward, or it could be the anger is something that's happened outside and you've brought it in, and the one person closest to you is the one person that within the relationship you will actually be angry with. And at this point, it's time to actually change direction. If you can identify the feeling, you've identified the cause of the stress. And if you can actually work out where your goal is going to be, where you're moving forward to, that's the time to actually change direction, but get to the same destination. But as you're doing it, do it together and talk.
How would you advise in relations of having a good life-work balance that fulfills us?
One of the things within a, work-life balance within a relationship as well is finding me time. And that can be a real challenge today. Talking as a person who lives in Britain, what I can identify is what's happening here. The Britons are finding it harder and harder to find time for themselves. And one of the reasons for this is that in the last 5 years, we've on average got between 8 and 9 hours less me time. And a lot of that is commuting and the fact that it takes so much more time to get to work, plus the hours have changed, flexi times, lots of things have changed. And trying to find a balance is actually, what you have to do is actually think, is the job you're doing the job you want to do? And we're all looking at money and we're looking at, can we survive? How can we survive? And quite often we've actually got into a rut. And also a lot of people are working from home. And that can cause stress because they're not taking themselves outside of the job environment. So you get up, you're actually working from home, having your meals at home, you're going to bed at home. And a lot of people have become insular. So looking at a work-life balance, what you need to do is identify what is work and what is your life. And if your life is your work and you're not enjoying it, that's the time that you have to really sit down and say, what do I want from my life?
As we key on building healthy relationships here on eHealth Radio on our relationship dating channel, how can one improve their ability to relate to others?
A fantastic way is actually listen to the words that your partner is saying, because quite often we're hearing the sentence and we're hearing the words, but we're not listening to the words, which actually means we're not listening to the meaning. And quite often we're so caught up in ourselves and our own lives, we are actually anticipating what your partner is meaning. And what you have to start doing is almost relearning to negotiate with your partner, relearning if there's any major disharmony within it, you actually start looking at a bigger picture. You start looking at the words that the person is using. Don't anticipate. And also ask your partner, is this what you were meaning? This is what I've understood by what you've just said. But is this what you really meant? And occasionally you'll find that the disharmony within the relationship is your own doing, because you literally haven't heard the words. And just remember to occasionally be the passenger. Don't always be the driver. Even if you don't like what you think is going to happen, be the passenger and just see. It might not be what you think it's going to be, and you might actually like it. And also be aware, because we're going through life at the moment and we're all buying into this bigger picture, but we've lost our awareness, and the awareness we have is in the moment, and every moment makes the picture, whereas a lot of